Don Pratt, host of a show here on Rogers TV where we give you a perspective of police in your community. Welcome to Policing York Region. We've always had great opportunities on here to talk to various units and bureaus within York Regional Police and what their roles are in the community. And just as excited this morning to be talking with Sergeant Malcolm Mcpherson from the Community Oriented Response Unit, better known as CORE. Malcolm, good morning.
Good morning, Don. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. Core unit is something that is a unit that I've had the pleasure of working with in recent years. I understand that you're reasonably new to the 3-district core unit, but I look forward to expanding that relationship with yourself as well.
Yes, as do I with volunteers.
Yes. No. And so, Malcolm, could you just give us a little bit of an oversight? What is the Community Oriented Response Unit?
Sure. Just before we begin, I just want to touch on, since I am at work and it's an active police station, might get interrupted the odd time through overhead pages or phone calls or so on. I'm going to try and minimize any interruptions, though. Well,
that's actually a really good opportunity, Malcolm, for us to throw this piece in that since COVID, I mean, we're taping this on August 26th, so we're still in the midst, if not still the height of COVID-19. And as a result of that, instead of us doing the nice, comfortable shoot in the studio, I'm doing it from my breakfast nook, and you're doing it from the other side of your desk at work.
That's correct. Yes.
Right. So, getting on to who is the core unit? What is that comprised of?
Okay, so in 3-district, which is patrols mostly Georgina and a little bit of East Gwillimbury, the core unit is responsible for addressing, as it says right in the name, community concerns, community issues that may extend beyond a 911 call to our dispatch office.
Right.
We also deal with areas of common complaints such as speeding, traffic concerns that the community has. We deal with community events and provide risk assessments for these events. We also organize police officers, auxiliary officers, and volunteer members to attend some of these events. And these events include parades, fairs such as the Sutton Fair, things that would normally happen, but obviously with the COVID restrictions, most of these events, if not all, have been postponed.
Yes. Yeah, we're all on the volunteer side of the fence, which is who I represent. We've been on stand-down mode since sometime around the middle of March. But you're right. I mean, as far as getting out to events, our own team gets out to somewhere around 20 events a year, and I can tell you that we see the core officers there at very most of them, actually.
Yes, and we try and be at every single one. Sometimes the demands are quite high and we can't attend all, and we rely heavily on our volunteer component of the organization to attend to these events.
No, absolutely. And that, it kind of leads us into a conversation that we had chatted about a few days ago about partnerships, both within the organization and outside of the organization. When we talk about community, which obviously, the community-oriented response unit, when we talk about community and volunteering and auxiliaries, I know you have a great relationship with the auxiliary unit as well. You lean on each other. But there's other partnerships outside the organization as well.
So the core unit works very closely with the town of Georgina, the mayor and the different departments that fall under the mayor's command, including bylaw, the roads and the parks departments. Within York Regional Police, we also partner with our community services unit, our traffic unit, road safety unit, and other units to sort of blend their specialties within actions that we need to take. We've also partnered with some of the community associations to deal with their concerns.
Right. So that's part of your response to community issues.
Yes. And as a result of certain events that have occurred during COVID, we've even partnered up with the OPP and Sybil's Point Park Management.
Yeah, so my family, we actually frequent Sibyl's Point, and we'll say that we've seen a slight increase in its usage during the summer of 2020, and certainly an increase in the level of policing.
Yeah, so I suppose what I can say is probably about a month into COVID, I have noticed personally an increase in, let's just say, poor driving behavior and poor choices made by a number of people. I'm not going to say everybody.
No.
And some of those peoples are visitors to Georgina, being somewhat of a very close to the GTA.
Right.
We are part of the GTA.
Right.
And having a beautiful waterfront here and beautiful parks, it was natural for people to migrate here to get away from their self-isolation as they, were asked to do.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and it's a beautiful park. I don't blame them.
Yes, yeah. So, and then of course with the restrictions that every park was supposed to, have to adhere to, the allowable attendance to Sibyl's Point was reduced as well. So with all this, it certainly did increase traffic to that area. And as a result of a lot of the traffic concerns and some of the community voiced their concerns, we reached out to the management of Sibyl's Point Park. And along with the town of Georgina, we reached out to the OPP. We worked with the town roads and bylaw department as well as regional roads. And really the OPP put a good plan together. Right. To manage that traffic in there with road signs and so on. And some of the, YRP and the town picked up some of the other components there, blocking off some of the side streets and making sure the traffic flows through.
Yeah, trying to make things better for the residents that are already there, right? They don't need to be inhibited by poor drivers that might frequent the area, right? One thing I just wanted to clarify, though, when we're talking about Sybil Point Provincial Park versus some of the parks in Georgina, Sybil Point is actually owned by the province of Ontario. It's owned and operated by the province of Ontario.
That's correct.
So sometimes we hear through our local politicians that they might be receiving complaints or what have you, and that's it's actually not their jurisdiction. It might be in their town, but it's not their park, right? So
the reason why we engaged in dealing with some of these traffic concerns is because even though that's the responsibility of the province, being the parks and OPP, some of those issues spilled over into the town, and we had to take action as well. So while that is the responsibility, we do also assist the OPP in dealing with some of the concerns that they have within the park sometimes.
And it just highlights some of those, we're always talking about partnerships, relationships. It just highlights what a strong partnership York Regional Police has with the Ontario Provincial Police, right?
Yes.
It's very easy for you folks to work hand in hand.
And we do frequently.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not just with relation to this. I mean, it's we see it everywhere. I can tell you that we've been out to many initiatives in the community, both on behalf of OPP and or York Regional Police and other agencies as well. It's again, we always highlight those partnerships and relationships. How's YRP's engagement with the actual town parks in Georgina?
So again, as I mentioned, due to the overwhelming number of visitors that were coming up, in addition to what normally happens here in Georgina with summer visitors, we had our challenges, and initially all the parks were closed, and a lot of people wanted to come here and hang out in the parks. I've even spoken with some visitors as far away as Kitchener who came up to Georgina because they heard that it was a safe place to enjoy the park. And they weren't experiencing some issues that some of the other parks around the province might have been experiencing. So we helped, partnered with the town bylaw and parks department to help patrol some of these parks and make sure that people were following the rules. While we can't be there 24/7, we did what we can, and we heard the community talking about some of the rule benders and people who wanted to skip the fence. And we normally responded in a timely fashion to help them, educate them, and have them leave that area. now.
It's actually testament to the town of Georgina. I mean, it really is a beautiful place to live, play, and stay. It's because of COVID, it's been a little overwhelming with the number of people that perhaps have wanted to come in here, right?
Right. And so I don't want to speak on behalf of the town, but I can tell you that in working with the town on a lot of the parks and some of the issues that we've experienced, they put a really good well thought out plan to open up one of the beaches, De La Salle Park and Beach.
Yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, I feel that it's been very well managed and it's been run very well.
Yeah, no, I have to agree, and we've heard a lot about that, in our local media. It was a tough pill to crack. It wasn't, nobody had any right answers, but overall, I think enforcement and decisions on the town were done in a good, safe manner.
Right, Don, and some of the challenging things. This is something unprecedented with this whole COVID situation, and rules, laws were being developed as we're moving along. So as things are progressing and changing, this very dynamic
actually call
situation.
we call it the moving target.
But, right, and we're trying to follow that.
We're just going to split over to a quick break.
Okay, very good.
Welcome back, everyone, as I continue my conversation with Sergeant Malcolm Mcpherson of the York Regional Police 3 District Community-Oriented Response Unit. Welcome back, Malcolm.
Thank you.
We had a very busy first segment. We were kind of all over the place, and it made me realize that there's still a whole lot more than what we talked about that you folks do.
Yes.
Right?
We do a lot of things.
It's a busy space, and it kind of makes me think that a unit like yours kind of fills in the blanks, maybe is a good way to refer to it. As in, you have your frontline officers, you have your detectives, but you kind of need some folks in the middle too.
Yeah, and actually, Don, I was at the parades this morning speaking to our uniform patrol officers about community concerns and how we fill that gap between the uniform officers and our citizens to try and deal with some of those community concerns before they become something bigger.
Right. Just as we went into break, there was a little blurb up on the screen referring to no ATV trails in the town of Georgina or in the York Region forests.
Yes.
So this is a I'm going to call it a misunderstood fact. In fact, I've known people that have purchased ATVs, and now they're calling their buddies saying, "Hey, where do you go riding?" And the answer is, well, we trailer it up to Halliburton. Right? So what are some of the rules and boundaries around ATVs and motorized vehicles, non-licensed motorized vehicles in Virginia?
So, Don, I've actually spoken with some people who purchased side-by-sides and golf carts with the sole purpose of driving around town in them. So I guess, a little education has to go a little further with that.
Yes.
Currently, there is no law that allows the use of ATVs, golf carts, side-by-sides to be driven on any of the public roads within the town of Georgina. I can tell you there are no public trails for ATVs, and these off-road vehicles can only be used on private property. I'm aware that in other jurisdictions, Halliburton, for example, there are public ATV trails where people can buy trail passes or whatever and go all day. But at this current time in Georgina, it's not allowed.
And not to be consumed with or compared with our snowmobile trails.
Right. I know some other jurisdictions have experienced some problems. With COVID, people are looking for alternative things to do, right? They can't go on vacation anymore. Money that they have scrolled away for other things. They've purchased ATVs, and perhaps out of not knowing any better, they've used the snowmobile trails during the summer to drive their ATVs on. Now, these trails are managed by the Snowmobile Federation, and quite often they're on private property. ATVs are not allowed on them. The Snowmobile Association doesn't want them on there because they do create ruts, create issues for the groomers and the snowmobiles who try and use it in the wintertime. And it costs them money.
There are a few other elements to that, as you were saying, that the snowmobile, it is actually an association that people who purchase snowmobiles for their own recreational use, they purchase passes for these trails, and that's what in part helps support the maintenance of the trails. And the other thing that not all the trails are on, a lot of the trails rather are on private property.
Yes, on farmland.
Yeah, so I mean, during the winter, perhaps they're not growing their crops. There's nothing wrong with the snowmobile traveling across the snow. During the summer, probably not a great idea.
No, and you know, unfortunately, I haven't heard any complaints of that happening in Georgina.
Good.
But yes, mine, and I haven't done a whole lot of research on the Snowmobile Association. I don't snowmobile myself, but my understanding, just as you said, is they pay their dues, and that goes to maintaining the trails and paying insurance for the private properties that they're crossing through.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and as far as, you know, we had talked earlier about them driving on the side of the roads. That's absolutely out. Like, there is no ATVs or non-licensed vehicles allowed on the side of the road.
No, and actually, I've had a number of complaints of visitors coming to this area and dropping people off on ATVs and dirt bikes. I don't know. I guess they think that because we're still somewhat in the country that it's okay to just drive wherever.
Yeah, because you're in cottage country, it's allowed, right? Yeah, not so.
Not so much in Georgina, no.
No. Well, it kind of gives us a good segue, though, into some road safety. You know, this time of year is, well, no different than any other time. I guess every time of year brings in its own levels of road safety concern. But right now, I mean, here we are, we're taping August 26th. We're going to be having, well, we don't know exactly how this is going to roll out, but there's going to be some level of schooling. It's going to start in September, October. We got to talk about school safety zones.
So people need to be aware of this, and as I guess we can call it the new normal sets in with school coming back online, people have to be aware again that there will be children out there and other adults escorting them using the crosswalks where there are no sidewalks. They'll be walking on the shoulders, and some of those crosswalks are at stop signs and intersections. Yeah. With the increase in poor driving behavior that we experienced through the summer, I'm pleading to drivers to pay attention. Even though there's been less people out on the road, it's time to get the mind back in gear that there will be little kids out on the road and teenagers using them. So please follow the road rules.
One thing that I always appreciate this time of year is just a heightened presence of police vehicles or personnel in school zones, even ahead of school starting. I think it's a good way to remind people that, oh, watch the speed, keep it slowed down.
So I can tell you, we talked about partnerships earlier, and just this week, in fact, I was having meetings with my partners in the community service office, as well as with our uniform members who are creating initiatives to address some of these concerns and get people in that mindset that school is coming and be forewarned. While some people may be getting warnings, others may be getting tickets, and just, you know, that counts against insurance and so on down the road. Could have big impacts.
Yeah, no, and you know, that whole element around school zone safety it's not just in the school zones. We got to be mindful that there's going to be a lot more foot traffic on the areas leading up to the schools, like in the subdivisions, on the sidewalks. And I've had the opportunity of speaking with other officers about back to school safety. And one thing to be mindful of is they're young, they're busy, they're preoccupied, they may not be paying attention to where they are on the roadway.
And this year is, again, exceptional due to COVID. As I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot less foot traffic on the road, a lot less traffic on the road. And some motorists have taken that to perhaps stray outside the rules of the road.
Yes.
And children who have been, for the most part, in their homes and not going about the community, they also need to get their mind in shape for the rules of the road and what's expected of them to stay safe.
And something else that I've seen the signs on, and I'm not sure I don't think you and I have really had much of an opportunity to chat about this, but I've seen signs around certain school areas where I believe it says traffic calming camera coming soon or something to that effect.
Right. So I won't speak too much about that, but it's this is something that's operated by York Region, like the Regional Roads Department.
Yeah.
And, anybody can log on to York Region Roads website.
Right.
And they will be able to see where all these traffic cameras will be. The one that's going to be showing up in Georgina will be in the Metro and Old Homestead area.
Yes, I've seen one outside that school. And I understand what you're saying, that this isn't something that's being the York Regional Police is doing. This is actually the region of York that they've taken this on.
Yeah, it's much like the red light cameras, and they'll be managing.
Right. So, and even just, even aside from the camera itself, even just seeing that sign, you see brake lights as soon as people see signs like that, right?
I'm happy to see that, especially in that area. It is one of our complaint areas for speeding.
Yes, it is.
And I suppose that's why the region chose that area, as Metro Road is one of their roads. They've chosen that to put that speed camera there.
Yeah, no, and it makes perfect sense. Keep the traffic going, keep the traffic speed reduced in those areas. One thing that I always want to touch on, because again, it's something that seems to sometimes be misunderstood, is school bus safety. So when school buses are on a highway and those big flashing red lights come on, it is the law to stop. It
is. And I guess to step up their efforts in keeping the children safe, school children safe, some of the school buses might be equipped with cameras on there. So just because a police officer is not there at the time to observe that behavior, we might be able to follow up with that evidence and pursue any charges through that. No, that's great. I wasn't aware of that. That's quite the. I've heard. I don't know which school buses will have that, but. Yeah, but something for people to know is with school buses, you're stopping in both directions. You're not just the guy that's stopping behind the bus. When those lights come on, you have to stop in both directions. Yes, every motorist needs to, and we all have to remember to be patient, especially, again, with all these restrictions due to COVID. It might be a lot more difficult and take a lot longer for the kids to get off the bus and cross that street. So please be patient around the school buses. Make sure you come to a full stop. It's not worth it. It's not worth it for the fine, but it's not worth it to put somebody's safety in jeopardy for the sake of, say, 30 seconds. No, and I think some of it too is just the education piece. I've actually spoken to some people when I've had opportunity on coming out with York Regional Police on initiatives. And not all people seem to have been aware of those big flashing red lights and in what direction you had to stop. I actually had one gentleman say, I understand not being able to pass the bus, but I thought we were allowed to be in the opposing lane and continue. And not so. You know, it's been a week or two since I had my my 365, which is the folks these days, it's their G1. I love that reference, Malcolm. But I believe that when anybody gets their driver's license, that's part of the education component for that. So hopefully people do remember some of these basic safety rules on the road. Right. And so your team, along with the traffic unit, along with the frontline officers, along with the school resource officers, are always out and mindful and enforcing these facts, right? Yes. And we will enforce it if we see the offense happen.
Yeah, and one thing that we like to mention on the show too is that although one unit may be larger than another, or one unit may be smaller than another, it's those shared resources that make it such a powerful force, isn't it?
Partnerships.
That's exactly what it is.
Yes.
And like I say, we've had the opportunity of getting out to a great many initiatives, and that's what we see. We see somebody from the Corps office, we see somebody from the schools, we see. But Malcolm, I got to thank you for being here. This has been a great conversation. The time went way too fast.
Wow, did it ever?
And we'll have to do it again. Folks,
okay.
It's been great having you. Look forward to seeing you again.